Welcome to this lesson on understanding conflict at work. The way your business handles conflict can have a big impact on staff morale and productivity, and ultimately on your organization's profits and reputation. In this lesson, we explore the causes of conflict and help you get an understanding of where to begin in resolving and ultimately preventing conflict in the workplace. Managing conflict at work is becoming an increasing challenge for employers. A study by the University of Warwick reports that, overall, more than 1 in 3 workers experience conflict at work, at a cost of £28.5 billion per year in the UK as a whole, an average of around £1,000 for every UK worker. Crucially, the research underlines the importance of early intervention, and the need for managers to develop the skills to manage and prevent conflict. So, just what is conflict? The Random House Dictionary defines conflict as to come into collision or disagreement, be contradictory, at variance, or in opposition, clash. Remember, everyone experiences conflict. It's how you deal with it that matters. People often assume that conflict is always negative. However, people are inherently different, and conflict simply happens when those differences come to light. Conflict can also be healthy. For example, when 2 companies vie for the top market share of a particular product. Or, several sales teams work to get first place. Or alternatively, 6 hockey teams work towards winning a championship. Here are some typical symptoms of negative conflict. Motivation drops. Fewer people volunteer to take on new tasks and there is little employee input at team meetings or briefings. Behavior changes. People start to make derogatory remarks towards each other and there are fewer social events organized. Productivity falls. There are likely to be more queries and complaints if people are not cooperating with each other. And sickness absence increases. Unhappiness may lead to depression or stress. Tim Roberts, a conflict management and transformation specialist at the University of Chester, in the United Kingdom, highlights the following important issues in connection with workplace conflicts. Managers spend 40% to 90% of their time dealing with conflicts, in one form or another. Unresolved conflicts lead to at least 50% of resignations. The cost of replacing one employee is more than their yearly salary. And senior HR executives spend up to 20% of their time in litigation activities, most of which relate to conflict in the workplace. According to the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, the average UK employer is involved in 30 formal disciplinary cases, and 9 formal grievance cases per year, spending approximately 12 days managing them. The average employer receives 3 employment tribunal applications per year, and spends 16.4 days preparing for them. Bullying costs employers 18 million lost working days, and £2 billion in lost revenues per year. 10% of employees have experienced bullying in the last 6 months. And research into 16 bullying cases in one organization arrived at costs of £20,000 per case. The table below illustrates some of the more common causes of workplace conflict. The first is unclear expectations, where employees are unsure of what is expected of them, and there is a lack of clear targets and lack of guidance. The second is ineffective communication, resulting from poor listening, faulty perceptions or incorrect assumptions. The third cause may lack of clear boundaries, where may conflicts arise over funding, space, equipment, or people. The next cause of conflict is interpersonal styles, where differences over race, religion, politics, values, etc. may lead to conflict. Another cause can be conflicts of interests, where competing departments and people conflict motivated by personal interests. Organizational change is also a source of conflict, which can lead to fear and anger with management. Now let's consider the typical stages of conflict. In his book, Organizational Behavior, Stephen Robbins identifies 5 stages of conflict resolution. There are potential opposition of compatibility, cognition and personalization, intentions, behavior, and outcomes. Let's look at each of these stages. When team members do not get along, it usually is caused by 3 factors. The first is poor communication skills. The way in which communication is worded is important for smooth exchange of information. In addition, research shows that the amount of communication is very important. Too much communication opens the door for conflict, by confusing the issue. Too little communication leads to misconceptions and poor understanding and leads to conflict. Second, the structure of roles of the team members is a source of conflict. For example, one member's tasks can directly affect the ability of another member completing their task. Third, the personality differences between members can cause conflict. Not liking another team member and being irritated at what they say is not exactly conducive to good teamwork. Stage 2 is the perception of conflict. This relates to the personalization of the conflict. In this phase, the potential for conflict becomes actualized. Perceived conflict relates to the individual or group actually seeing the conflict arise and affect them. It creates the awareness of the problem. A felt conflict arises when individuals become emotionally charged due to the conflict, creating hostility with the opposing party. It is in this phase that the conflict is defined, and each party envisions what they believe to be the solution. Stage 2 is important because it's where conflict issues tend to be defined. This is the place in the process where the parties decide what the conflict is about. And, in turn, this sense-making is critical, because the way a conflict is defined goes a long way toward establishing the sort of outcomes that might settle it. The second point is that emotions play a major role in shaping perceptions. For example, negative interpretations of the other party's behavior. In contrast, positive feelings have been found to increase the tendency to see potential relationships among the elements of a problem, and to develop more innovative solutions. Stage 3 is intentions. As the popular saying goes, the road to heaven is paved with good intentions. This is also true in teams. There may be a significant gap between what a member intends to do, and the actual action taken. In addition, assuming another's intentions can lead to wrong action and lead to conflict. Let's look at how intentions intervene between people's perceptions and emotions, and their behavior, using 2 dimensions, cooperativeness, or the degree to which one party attempts to satisfy the other party's interests, and assertiveness, or the degree to which one party attempts to satisfy his or her own concerns. 5 conflict handling intentions can be identified. The schedule below shows the position of each conflict handling intention on the cooperativeness and assertiveness dimensions. Let's look at each of these intentions. When one party seeks to satisfy his or her own interests, regardless of the impact on the other parties to the conflict, he or she is competing. This means overpowering other groups in the conflict, and promoting the concerns of one's own group, at the expense of the other group. One way to accomplish this aim is by resorting to authority, to satisfy the concerns of one's own group. Thus, the head of a group of account executives may appeal to the director of advertising to protect the group's territory from the intrusions by other account execs. The collaborating strategy attempts to satisfy the concerns of all groups by working through differences and seeking solutions, so that everyone gains as a result. A marketing department and a manufacturing department that meets on a regular basis to plan mutually acceptable production schedules are collaborating. The avoiding approach requires staying neutral at all costs, or refusing to take an active role in conflict resolution procedures. For example, the finance department that sticks its head in the sand and hopes that disagreement about budgetary allocations will blow over is exhibiting avoidance. The accommodating approach allows other groups to satisfy their own concerns at the expense of one's own group. Differences are smoothed over to maintain superficial harmony. A purchasing department that fails to meet budgetary guidelines, because it deliberately overspends on raw materials, to satisfy the demands of the production department, is trying to use accommodation to cope with the conflict. Compromising lies in the mid-range of both cooperativeness and assertiveness. This approach seeks partial satisfaction of all groups, through exchange and sacrifice, settling for acceptable rather than optimal resolution. Contract bargaining between union representatives and management involves significant compromise by both sides. When most people think of a conflict situation, they tend to focus on the behavior stage. Why? Because this is where conflict becomes visible. The behavior stage includes the statements, actions, and reactions made by the conflicting parties. Behavior is a stage we all understand the best, since it is clearly seen. In this stage, action surfaces in the form of verbal causes resulting in reaction exchange. Poor behavior leads to conflict, through negative spirals of accusations and rebuttals, which may lead to serious conflict. In the final stage, the result of the conflict, or the outcome, becomes visible. These outcomes may be functional in that the conflict results in an improvement in the group's performance, or dysfunctional in that it hinders group performance. Let's look at what this means. A functional conflict is a confrontation between groups that enhances and benefits the organization's performance. For example, two departments in a hospital may be in conflict over the most efficient and adaptive method of delivering health care to low-income rural families. Two departments agree on the goal but not on the means to achieve it. Whatever the outcome, the low-income rural families probably will end up with better medical care once the conflict is settled. Without this type of conflict in organizations, there would be little commitment to change, and most groups would become stagnant. Functional conflict can lead to increased awareness of problems that need to be addressed, resulting in broader and more productive searches for solutions, and generally facilitate positive change, adaptation, and innovation. A dysfunctional conflict is any confrontation or interaction between groups that harms the organization or hinders the achievement of organizational goals. Dysfunctional conflicts affect individual and organizational performance. Resolving conflicts consumes a considerable amount of managerial time and energy, which could more productively spent in the absence of conflicts. In a conflict situation, people may promote their self-interests or personal gains at the cost of others in the organization. Intense conflicts over a prolonged period affect individuals emotionally and physically, and give rise to psychosomatic disorders. Time spent on conflicts, if costly, could mean considerable amount of money wasted. Conflicts may lead to work sabotage, employee morale problems, and decline in market share, and consequent loss of productivity. Management must seek to eliminate dysfunctional conflict. This graph shows the relationship between types and levels of conflict, and the level of performance of a business unit. We can see that at point A, there is low level of conflict, and also low level of unit performance. At point B, the optimal level of conflict occurs when the level of performance of the unit is also highest. Equally, at point C, where the level of conflict is high, the level of unit performance is also low. This suggests that functional conflict can contribute to organizational performance. We can see that the outcomes of a conflict can be highly disruptive for an organization, but if effectively managed, conflict can contribute to organizational performance. It is then obvious that with a conflict resolution process, people can explore and understand personal and professional differences, and use them to interact in a more positive, productive way. Managers spend a large proportion of their working week dealing with workplace conflicts. It is obvious, therefore, that time spent gaining expertise in this field will be worthwhile. Resolving human conflicts and discord can involve styles that range from collaboration to avoidance, and involve varying degrees of cooperation and assertiveness. Workplace conflict is usually regarded as being counterproductive. However, if the positive energy associated with conflict can be harnessed, it may then be directed towards problem solving and organizational improvement. This viewpoint regards conflict resolution as a mechanism for providing employees with ongoing operational feedback and for encouraging creativity.
Want to learn more about this subject? Then click on our website to view the full course. Why not subscribe and get access to free articles and special offers? Join the Global Career Highway now.